Hello all, welcome to VARC 100. This is RC number 22 of the series. Let's begin. So in the first paragraph, author tells you that timelines hanging in the classroom only tell students about facts. They only tell students facts about history, and they undermine the importance of context. So basically, the timelines only tell students what happened, uh, when it happened, when it occurred, and where it occurred. But they do not tell you why it occurred or how it occurred. So the context of an event is absent from the timelines. In the second paragraph, he tells you that the US history timeline similarly highlights dates more than the events themselves and provides a rigidly linear historical narrative. So basically, the US history timeline highlights the dates of events rather than the events themselves, why the events happened, and it also provides a linear structure, rigidly linear structure of events, as if one event was independent of the other, or they occurred in they were mutually exclusive. The US timelines present events in such a manner that they appear mutually exclusive, which means author probably thinks that these events were not mutually exclusive. That is why he's criticizing the timelines for presenting such an impression. Okay. And in the last two paragraphs, author talks about the implications of these timelines. So they imply that there are only 64 important events in US history. It also implies that these events are the official versions of US history. This is exactly how the events occurred. They also imply that these events were independent of one another. They also imply that only one event came to pass in a given year. And finally, they also imply that the US history is dominated by wars. Now, please note the fact that author presents these implications, these possible impressions that the US timelines can give as deficiencies of the US timeline, insufficiency of US timeline, which means author thinks that these are wrong impressions, potentially wrong impressions that the timelines can give, which means author thinks the opposite. He probably thinks, therefore, that there are more than 64 important events in US history. He also thinks that there are multiple versions of US history. You cannot point out one version as the correct one. He also thinks probably that these events are not independent of one another, just unlike what these US timelines showcase or project them as. So you'll have to understand the tone of the author, and the tone here is critical. He's criticizing the timelines for being insufficient teaching tools. They do not tell students important things about history. They only tell them facts which are myopic in nature. So they present a very myopic picture or a very limited, narrow picture of US history. That's what the author says. So nice passage. Finally, author comments that students cannot necessarily understand that this is not a comprehensive history of US, a comprehensive version of history. So there's a danger. The students might think that this is it. This is all that US history comprises of. But this is not it. This is not so. So author ends with a critical, again, he ends on a critical note. Okay. To the questions now. The author implies which of the following? Let's see. Option A, dates are not important in history. Author does not think that dates are not important. What he thinks is that dates are not the only important thing. So dates are important, but the context of event is also important. So this is factually twisted. Author criticizes the fact that the timelines only present dates, they only highlight dates and do not talk about why and how. The context part is absent. So he does not think that dates are not important, but he thinks that other than dates also there should be more information. The context should also be present. Option B, historical events are complex and always interconnected. Tempting choice. Though author criticizes the fact that the US timelines present events as independent, author calls it a wrong impression. He does not call it, but he implies that this could be a potentially wrong impression, that these 64 events were independent, totally independent of one another, which means author thinks that the historical events are not independent, they are interconnected. However, option B says they are always interconnected. At most, we can infer from the author's discussion that he believes that these events may be interconnected. They may be interconnected. So presenting them as independent events is wrong. But we cannot infer that he thinks that they are always interconnected. So this extreme word makes it wrong. They may be interconnected is the right statement here as per the author's discussion. Option C, implicit messages can be as important as the explicit ones. Author has made this clear in this particular sentence, third paragraph, first line. To analyze any particular timeline, it is important to recognize what the timeline expresses implicitly. So implicit messages are important. They can be as important as explicit ones. The best part about this answer choice is that it uses the modality of possibility. Implicit messages can be as important. Now, had this answer choice argued that implicit messages are as important as explicit ones, both of them are equally important, then we would not be able to infer that. Then it would be wrong, because we cannot really go to the extent of saying that both of them are equally important. Both of them can be equally important is something that we can infer from the discussion here. Okay. So the modality is fine. Option C should be the correct answer. Option D, a study of American history that does not include wars is incomplete, which means wars are important. Wars are important. Simplify this answer choice first. Always try to simplify the answer choices. So option D, answer choice D says wars are important. Does the author think that wars are important? In fact, author has criticized the fact that US history overemphasizes wars. He says that it gives you an impression that wars, the US history is made up of wars only. Wars dominate US history. That's the wrong impression given by, that's a questionable impression given by the US timelines. So he criticizes the facts that wars are given undue importance. So he would not imply that wars are important. Wars are not as important, or wars are not the only important thing rather. So this is contradictory to what the author thinks or feels about the importance of wars. Option D is out. Question 2. The author's attitude towards timelines can best be described as. So overall tone of the passage. The question becomes overall tone of the passage. What is the tone of the passage? Okay. Clearly, author is not happy with timelines. He thinks that they're insufficient teaching tools. They do not tell students everything that is important about US history. They are myopic in nature. They are narrow in scope. So his attitude is negative towards US timelines. Option A. Now all these options are negative actually. So it becomes tricky. The question becomes tricky. Now what to do? Now look for a tangible word, a tangible statement or a tangible expression, a tangible evidence for one of these answer choices in the passage. There has to be a word which will match the tone in one of these answer choices. Okay. So is the author condescending and impertinent? What is the meaning of Condescending. Condescending is treating timelines as inferior or insufficient, or basically impertinent means insulting. Is the author insulting the timelines? Not really. This is too much to say. This is extreme, because author does say in the first paragraph here that they are useful. They are useful. So he does agree that, okay, they are useful, but despite their usefulness, they are insufficient. So he's not insulting, outright insult to nahi hai. He's not considering them totally, contempt worthy. So extreme answer choice eliminated. He's suspicious of the timelines. Okay, maybe the answer. And resigned about them. Okay, he's hopeless. He's hopeless about timelines. Again, an extreme answer choice. He's again not hopeless. He admits that they are useful. He's wary. So he's cautious about timelines. Yes. So he says that the timelines do not present history as they should. So he's cautious about their use. They should be used with caution. And is he portentous? What is portentous? He warns of the danger. Warns of the danger. He thinks that timelines are dangerous somehow. Last line, the danger of using the timeline as a teaching tool. There's a danger of using the timeline as a teaching tool. So clearly, he warns of the danger. He's portentous. We have a tangible evidence. We have this word danger, which justifies the word portentous. Portentous. So correct answer, option C. For tone-based questions, always try to find out a tangible word, a tangible evidence in the passage which justifies one of these answer choices. Rather than go merely by intuition or intuitive understanding of the tone, always try to locate a tangible evidence in the passage. So option C is better. Negative, yes, author is negative about timelines. Okay, no problem with the word negative. Is he complacent? Complacent means he's okay, he's satisfied. He's negative, but he's satisfied. Okay, chalne do, jaisa kaam chal raha hai, just let it be. Nothing of this nature is mentioned in the passage. In fact, he wants some change. So option, this complacent is also contradictory to author's tone. Goes out. Question number 3. Author would most likely agree with all of the following except, okay. Option A, there are more than 64 important events. Yes, author criticizes the fact that the US timeline presents US history as merely a combination of 64 events or a compilation compendium of 64 events, which means author thinks that there are more important events as well. So he will probably agree with this statement, as we saw earlier. Option B, some students ascribe importance to prominent graphic position. Okay, first paragraph. Often taking a prominent position over a whiteboard or across a wall. Timelines are one of the most commonplace classroom tools used to teach history. So they take a prominent position over a whiteboard or across a wall, which means some students do ascribe importance to prominent graphic position. Okay, could be inferred. Timelines have some positive uses. Clearly, author mentions that they are useful despite their usefulness in allowing students to gain a cursory knowledge of history. So at least they are important in providing students with a cursory knowledge, some superficial knowledge of history. So timelines have some positive uses. Author will agree with this. Author will agree with A. B, maybe it's a doubtful choice, but let's see. A dubious choice. Unofficial histories have no merit. Now, please note, author thinks that here, second last paragraph, he says the timelines give you an impression that this is the official version of history and the only one that matters. And he criticizes this fact, which means, according to the author, it is not the only one that matters. So unofficial histories are important. He will not agree with the fact that unofficial histories are not important. They have no merit. This is contradictory to what the author thinks. According to him, official version is not the only one that matters. Unofficial versions also matter. That's what he criticizes here, right? Okay. So option D is clearly the answer. B can still be inferred by some extension of logic. According to the passage, a problem with timelines is what? There are many problems. Let's see which one is the correct one. Option A, their prominent placement in the classroom. Author does not mention this fact that they are placed prominently in the classroom as a problem point. This is not the problem. The problem is that they're insufficient. They're incapable of telling students of everything about history, which is important. So they only tell you, they only give you cursory knowledge or superficial knowledge. So their placement in classroom is not a problem. Not a problem. It's a fact, but it's not a problem. Not presented as a problem. Their lack of context. Exactly. This is the biggest problem that they have. They eclipse the importance of why and how. They tell you what happened, when did it happen, where did it happen, but they don't tell you why it happened and how it happened. So context, the historical context of events is absent. Their lack of context is the biggest problem. That's the essence of the passage. That's the gist of the passage, main idea of the passage. Okay. Last question was a vocab-based question. Which of the following could be substituted for the word myopic in the first paragraph without changing the meaning? Myopic means short-sighted, narrow in scope, which is parochial also. So option C can be they have the timelines are parochial in nature because they only focus on facts. They don't tell you about the context of historical events. They only tell you about the time, the place of these events. Okay. I hope you enjoyed this passage. Nice one. Hope you scored 5 on 5.